Welcome back to She Vets It. Today we're diving into an inspiring conversation with Jaidie Vargas, a cybersecurity leader dedicated to amplifying diversity in tech. Did you know that women make up only 26% of IT jobs and minorities are underrepresented in the industry? JD is on a mission to change that. With her background from the US Navy and her relentless advocacy work, she is breaking barriers and paving the way for a more inclusive future in cybersecurity. JD Vargas, welcome to She Vets It.
Thank you for having me.
You are so welcome. I want to just jump right into it. What motivated you to join the military?
There was a couple of different things that motivated me. Definitely family. So I had a brother who was in the Marine Corps at the time, and just seeing everything that he was able to accomplish and hearing his travel stories and some of the training, it definitely made me a little jealous. I want to travel. So traveling was another one. And then there was that naive side of me that I wanted to change the world. I believed in the mission of the military and keeping our families safe. And so that was a huge motivator for me. When I initially entered the military, I had an idea. I wanted to be a combat nurse. I wanted to care for others in the field. As you'll find out a little bit later through this interview, I did not become a combat nurse, but I did get introduced to a technical field, and that was just amazing. Yeah, definitely a couple of different motivators, starting with family.
Now, I want to get into the tech, but I want to start with your transition out the military. And many know that women veterans, the first year out of the military, they're 2.5 times more likely to die by suicide. And some may say that it could be the stress of finding their way or what that next chapter could be. It could be so many different reasons. And so we usually have this platform here to share with veterans. But when we share our stories and those challenges and how we push through, that can inspire another woman veteran who's right now may not know what's that next chapter will be. What was your chapter like, and what helped you along the way to find or to lead you to what it is that you're doing today?
It's a great question. So, yes, looking back, the transition period, you're going from doing something every day, whether you do it for 4 years or 20 years plus, you're doing the military, and that's all that community. And to go from having that community, the brothers or sisters that you serve with, to not having it anymore, it's definitely tough. And there's definitely a period of isolation. What I did ahead of time that I think that was super pivotal to my success was I let my chain of command know. I had a conversation with them. I'm transitioning out of the military. There's a couple of things that I need help with. I need your support. I took all of the transitioning classes that they offered on me. I took everything. I signed up. I did some research and I signed up for everything. And I was very glad that my chain of command supported me through that, because I do think that prepared me for life outside. What I was not prepared for is not having that community. And when I did transition out, I began to notice a common theme that I had not noticed in the military before, was that I was a woman in a meeting, usually the only woman or the only Latina. And when I began having those aha moments is when I started to look for community. And I was introduced to business resource groups. So a lot of organizations, companies, corporations, they call them BRGs, and it's like a club. And we had one in particular at my organization called the Women's Impact Network that I was introduced to. And I saw other women, and that really just made me have a sense of belonging. And then I started pulling that thread a little bit. And we had a military veteran one, which was phenomenal. They would bring in emotional support dogs about once a month. And that was great. And then I'm like, okay, I can do all this at work, but now what else can I do? And that kind of brought me into the nonprofit world, Latinas in tech, women in cybersecurity, Latinas in cyber, and a few others. But I think it's knowing that you're not alone. And yes, it is normal to feel isolated when you're going from having to share a room with one or two other people, or maybe in my case, because I was on the ship, 40 other women. So going from that to I'm all alone now with my partner at the time. But yeah, it's definitely different. So you have to build that community and reach out and put yourself out there. Use your social media, use your networking resources. So it's finding that fine balance. Yeah.
Yes, I know when I was getting out, I had a network of friends before the military. But once I joined the military, you have different experiences. For me, it seemed like it changed the dynamics of some of my friendships. Not all, but some of my friends could not necessarily relate to my military experience that I had. And I felt like I couldn't share those stories. Did the dynamics of your friendship change after getting off the military?
I was fortunate where I had a lot of military friends. So any story I could share, we could relate. Prior Navy, and a lot of my friends were prior Navy at the time. So they understood the language. But when you are coming into a corporate world or trying to integrate yourself, they might not understand or speak some of the same terms. Or I think some of us have dark humor, and sometimes that is not understanding in the corporate world or appropriate. So it's just relearning, like, how do I acclimate myself into this environment? And it starts from speaking, mannerisms, even the way you dress. For me, that was just really tough, going from wearing my comfortable baggy uniform into dressing up for work every day. And I will say I felt a little awkward sometimes. I'm like, is this appropriate? Do I fit in? Wasn't used to wearing normal clothes or having to pick up a different outfit every day. But yeah, I think going back to your original statement, I think it's just learning acclimation, but also not losing that sense of yourself. My partner was still in the Navy at the time that I transitioned out. So there was always ways for us to have those conversations and still understand that. So I think having a supportive partner played a big role in me not feeling so isolated in the beginning.
So the veteran community, if you're getting out the military, a lot of times you may not live in a military town. And so for me, I didn't live in a military town. So it was like, ooh, I need to figure out how to find my people. So
Yeah.
that's why I started a meetup group. And it was just more so that we had each other, even a few of us go to lunch or go to the movies. I really didn't think I wanted to form Chivettes It led to it, but I definitely understand. And hearing this common theme is that finding community support, and definitely family is everything. Because no matter what you're going through, you definitely need family that can relate and understand you and know where you're coming from.
Definitely. And I will say your family may not understand any of the terms. They might not even understand why you decided to serve in the military, but they, for the most part, have your back and they love you and they will never stop loving you. So I think family is also important to lean on. And sometimes a hug, you don't have to say anything to your parents or to your family members, but just a hug can say it all.
Oh, yes, definitely. Were there any challenges you faced during your transition? Did you ever find yourself getting stuck? And then how did you overcome that?
Yeah. That's a good question. I think I mentioned earlier just that transition of going from something that I knew and did every day for 7 years straight to something completely different, and just the fear of uncertainty, maybe is a good word for that. I think that was scary for me because, sure, I had decided that I wanted to transition out of the military, but what did that really look like? Have I been able to see other successful people go through what I have done, and then going through all that and just finding someone that I could talk to that had gone through it? That was hard. I wish that there had been communities at the time, female focused communities, that I could feel comfortable reaching out. Hey, I know you got out. Would you be my sponsor? Would you be my mentor? You look at my resume. How do I apply for a job? What is LinkedIn? There's just like all these questions, and you have the added stress that you are still, while you're in the transition period, most of us are still active duty. So we have our normal duties, our normal jobs, while we're also trying to do almost a full-time job, looking for another job and what that life will look like post-military period. So yeah, it is stressful. I did find myself through many challenges, and I think a lot of my pre-planning did help. That goes without saying. There were a lot of obstacles and a lot of plan A's, and then there were plan B's and sometimes plan C's.
I like what you said. I want to highlight you did pre-planning. There was intentionality as far as seeking support. You went to your first sergeant. hey, I'm going to need your support. You looked for mentors. Hey, how do you do this? And what is that? And so we can't expect for the resources and information to come to us. We actually have to be proactive and go out there and see, because they say a closed mouth never gets fed.
Mm-hmm.
And so I like that. So I definitely wanted to highlight that. But going from, you said you wanted to become a nurse in the military, but then you went into cybersecurity. Those are like two different things. What was that pivotal point where you're like, you know what? I'm not going to do the medical part. I think I'm going to go into the tech
Yeah.
arena.
Yeah. I'll back up a little bit in the timeline. So, right after high school, I did go to community college, Long Beach City Community College, for 6 months. And I was actually studying psychology. That was my end goal, and a little bit of drama on the side. That's when I decided, hey, I think I'm going to join the military. I didn't tell my parents, I didn't tell anyone. I just went to the recruiter office and signed up to take a test. And it wasn't until I was heading to the MEPS facility to get a job assignment and do all the medical processing that I told my parents I had to stay overnight somewhere. So that process happened, and you get assigned, hey, here's this list of jobs available. And I saw that, what was it called? Hospital corpsman, that's a nurse in the Navy, that there wasn't anything available until a year plus out. So it'd be over a year before I could leave to boot camp, and I would have to stay waiting for that time period. But then my recruiter told me, hey, there's this job. It's called IT. I didn't know what it stood for, didn't know what it was. He, mentioned something about emails, and I imagined something techie. So I said, okay, I'll give it a go. This one I could leave. I think the lead time for boot camp was 4 months. And that sounded a lot better to me at the time than over a year. And so that's what really landed me in the tech world, starting off with IT, information technician. And I was not a technical person whatsoever. I did retail in high school and in college, so I did not consider myself in that type of role ever. Even was it a role that we talked about in my home. Fast forward a couple of years in the military doing IT, I had a senior chief at the time asked me if I was interested in the specific schooling that was a little bit into cybersecurity. Had she not brought that opportunity to me, I don't know that I would be in cybersecurity today. So the military was actually pivotal into introducing me to cybersecurity.
What advice would you give veterans finding it challenging to discover their purpose outside of the uniform?
Yeah. Oh, that's a great question. So finding a purpose outside of the uniform, as someone who I could say, quote unquote, wore her rank, and once that was taken off, feeling like I didn't have anything, it definitely took a lot of path finding, exploring the creative side of me. So I think we forget there's a lot of out there right now where it's learn coding, learn technical skills, but we also need people who have thinking skills. We also need creatives. So I challenge everyone to find something creative, whether it's writing, painting, or maybe just going outdoors, or maybe it's fitness. I think that was very helpful for me to focus all that energy there. And then for those who are transitioning, I do want to add that even if you go in with the knowledge of only doing 4 years, or whether you're going to be, we call it a lifer, 20 plus years, you start now, start early, keep a binder of whether it's a digital file or an actual binder, keep a binder of all of your accomplishments, your awards, your badges, everything that you've done, because the last thing you want to do is go through all the stuff that we go through and then finish your career service or have to transition, or hopefully not medically separated, but that it's a reality that happens. You want to have all that information compiled and be ready to go to transition, because that's also going to help your personal life and staying organized.
I love that. That is definitely great advice. Now, what organizations or groups that you would recommend for those that want to get into IT and they may have not did IT or cybersecurity in the military, but they're finding out, you know what, I think I want to move more into that field. What organizations would you think would be a good fit?
Yeah. So there's a lot out there. A couple that are veteran focused, definitely hiring military. They put on free career events, free resume reviews. That is a great one. But one that's actually tech specific is the Vets Tech. And I heard of them through LinkedIn. But what they do is they also do certification cohorts. If you are interested in technology or cybersecurity, definitely do some research into industry certifications. A lot of the times as a veteran, we get veteran preference, but also sometimes we have clearances. So those are great to have along with one of these accompanying certifications. So take a look at certifications offered by VetTech and other organizations. A couple of others, Women in Cybersecurity, that's open to everyone. They have a specific military chapter, and they also have meetups and a lot of virtual webinars with really good information that they present. There's a few veteran ones. She Vets It is a great one. Listen to
Thank
their
you.
podcast. There's plenty out there. I think it's doing that legwork, going on LinkedIn, going on just Google and finding stuff that's out there, because even state resources for veterans are great. So there's a lot, and it's just finding them and then organizing yourself to figuring out what exactly you want to pursue.
I definitely agree with that. Thank you so much. I did hear of Vet Tech. I want to say I saw them on the Meetup app. So I want to say they may have different ways where you can meet up and connect if you're into the tech field. You can probably type in information about coding or moms that code. I think that's like the information that you shared. Let me see. As an employee now at Lockheed Martin, congratulations. Balancing your role at Lockheed Martin with community involvement can be demanding. How did your military training prepare you for managing these commitments effectively?
Yeah, military training is great if you're trying to get into a high demand field in a fast paced environment like cybersecurity or technology. And I'll tell you why. One, we work great under pressure. That's what we're trained to do. We are great multitaskers. We are analytical. Maybe our spouses or partners don't like that, but it is great for this field. So, yeah, and then just having that leadership training as well. I always remember when I was in boot camp, I my goal was to not have my RDCs know my name, and I was just going to fly under the radar and be invisible. That doesn't happen at boot camp. For those who haven't been to boot camp, and they called my name and they said, "Seaman Recruit Vargas," and that was the first time that I learned to just come out of my shell and be an extrovert when called for. Had the military not given me that training or called on me, I might still be an introvert. So just putting me in those leadership positions and those high pressure environments and introducing me to technology was pivotal, and it definitely prepared me to what I do every day now.
That is so true. Like my son is in the military and he was a introvert.
Mhm.
And yes, he came out. It surprised me. He does a lot of the military will put you in leadership roles, and actually you have no choice because if you want to move along the ranks, there's certain things you're going to have to do. You're going to have to lead a platoon. You're going to have to lead in some way, or there's no way you could, like you said, you can't ride under the radar.
Yeah.
So I love that you share that. But another thing is, what is a memory that you found or your experience on a project that has significantly impacted your career in cybersecurity?
I'll start with my training. So, right after boot camp, I got sent to training for my IT career. And one of the first things that they had me do was take apart a computer and then reassemble it. And I got to tell you, it was the most frustrating thing ever, especially somebody that did not have the technical background. And it just taught me to push through. And that was one of the first challenges. And there were a few in my Navy career, being on the ship and being an IT and having to learn how to troubleshoot and figure out problems. But that actually grew my passion for questioning, like, how does something work? How can I fix it? What is the solution? And that's been a common theme across my career now, even as a manager, seeing maybe a problem or a challenge as an opportunity. Okay, this is a problem maybe, but let's reframe it. It's also an opportunity for us to come in and maybe create a solution.
Now that you're in the tech field, we talked about diversity in the tech, and you are looking at ways on how more Latinas in the community can get into the tech field. Because for one, 26% women are in the tech field. And then when you start looking at women minorities of color and then Latinas, it's even less than that. So,
Mhm.
what are some things that you're doing now to bring awareness?
Yeah. Yeah. So the latest statistic of Latinas in the STEM industry is there's less than 3% that make up the entire STEM industry. So we have some work left to do. But in the meantime, there's a couple of nonprofits that I'm passionate about and that I take leadership roles to help that number. So the first one being Latinas in Tech. So that is a global organization. And in Colorado, myself and a few other of my teammates, we founded Latinas in Tech Denver, and we co-lead a lot of events and just bringing the community together and letting them know that these tech careers exist. Another great one that I was president of was Women in Cybersecurity. They're also global and they have various chapters around the world. And they actually also have a military affiliate chapter, which is phenomenal. They also have a lot of webinars for veteran spouses and veterans and women looking to transition. And a newer one that I was recently involved with is Latinas in Cyber. They are actually founded by a military veteran herself, but they do all kinds of great things as far as like training for certifications in the IT industry, webinars, mentorship programs. So there's a lot of really amazing nonprofits, and those are just a few that I named that I am personally involved with. But other than that too, there's a lot of outreach efforts that I like to do with the K through 12 education system as well, going and talking to some of the students, participating in their career fairs, and just letting them know, hey, these careers exist. And to me personally, it doesn't matter if you don't want to pursue a career in STEM, but what I do want, especially up and coming generations, I want them to know is that these careers exist. There's all these fun careers, and maybe historically we haven't seen a Latino or a woman through movies. We see like the hacker with the hood, and it's usually a male. Historically, we don't see some of us ourselves in those careers. So personally want others to know that they exist and that there's so many of us out there in these fields.
I love that. And one thing before you said this K through 12, I was just thinking that the best way to find them is while they're still in school. Military is fine, but if we can catch our students while they're still young and like you said, showing up at the school and letting them know, hey, I'm in tech and you can be in tech as well is another one. I know around the country, some of the chambers, different organizations, the Youth Entrepreneurship Academy, a lot of times they have programs for young adults that want to get into tech or may have a tech idea. There's another organization called 1 Million Cups. And so if someone is interested in starting their own tech business, they can pitch their business to 1 Million Cups and maybe someone in the audience that may be an investor. I know YEA, which is Youth Entrepreneurship Academy, they had one he designed a robotic hand device. He'd been on Today's Show. He's met the
Wow.
president. He's already distributed about 1,000 now. So it's just so cool if we can capture them young. I'm trying to think. He's probably in
That's
middle school.
incredible. And children have this innate ability to just create and to question, where I think sometimes when we get older, we lose that a little bit. And so just fostering like environments where children can create, and maybe I think you were alluding to like robotics and stuff like that, and
Yeah.
having the funding and giving back to our community, especially as veterans too. I think just talking to them and letting them know, hey, I did this in the military. There's all kinds of roles in the military. I think oftentimes we see war movies and we think that's all there is in the military, but there is so much more. So I think just being there and shouting that out at career exploration date would be tremendous.
There's that myth, like you said, in the military. I always have to share with my friends about the military because, yes, we are soldiers first, or airmen, or sailors first. However, any job that you can think of that's in the civilian world is in the military. There's doctors, radiologists, there's IT, cybersecurity, a chaplain, you name it.
Mm-hmm.
There's just so many. So a lot of times people think that, oh, I just got to be a soldier, but there's so much more to the military than what people know. That's why when you're getting out the military, the importance of being able to transition and be able to translate those words, those military jargons into civilian words so that people can see, oh, you led a platoon, or that means supervisor. You're in charge of headquarters. There's so many titles that translate to high level positions, but a lot of times civilians can't get, and sometimes we can't communicate that to them to let them know what it is that we do. But I tell them, in the military, any job you can think of in the civilian world is in the military. And so
Mm-hmm.
I love that. How do you stay updated on cybersecurity? Because as a professional in any field, you want to stay updated, like putting together, I think you mentioned earlier, putting together a computer. Today's computer is probably different from the computers that's going to come out 10 years from now. So, how do you keep evolving in your field?
Yeah, I can't say I can put a computer back together nowadays, but I would try. Definitely a lot of podcasts, a lot of webinars, any professional growth opportunities that I can make, I'll try to listen in or read about. I'm also a forever student, so I'm working on my master's right now in cybersecurity. So I think that in itself helps me with my research papers and keeping up to date with use cases, what happened in the past, and what do we foresee in the future. That has been a huge help. And really just reading a lot of the entries and news articles on cyber and the latest on technology, because technologies, it is evolving. It's evolving right now as we speak. So it's hard to always be 100% in front of it. But I think as long as you're reading articles and listening to podcasts and being committed to it, it can be easily manageable.
Yes, I often think about just the time that I just decide to stop catching up with technology is the time that I'll probably have to start calling my kids and to show me how to turn this on or plug this, because there's always new technology. And so if we're not continuous learners, we you get stuck in wherever you last stayed. but
Yes.
I but one thing, several things that when I talk to young adults, I talk to them, and things that you have mentioned was mentorship. If I speak to college students, I always talk to them about mentorship is so important. Finding people that have more experience than you, that can guide you in your career. They've probably have 10 years of experience. And so now you're connecting with someone that can get you a lot further where you don't have to do 10 years of work. It helps to shorten the learning curve.
Mhm.
And then also being a continuous learner, like you said, the podcast, the webinar, going back to school to get new information, finding out the latest trends. And another thing that I always say is networking, being part of associations within the field that you're in. I used to run a chamber of commerce. I
Mhm.
always went to associations for chamber execs. So that's where I would learn about the technology you're talking about, because there will be organizations that are there that have some of the software that us chamber execs need, or just whatever that is. So in cybersecurity, you're going to find out the newest and the latest gadgets and things to do and all that, and the experts. And then you're going to find sometimes they have the top experts in that field that are speaking at those conferences or conventions or things like that. So I definitely love that. So, what advice would you give to women, especially those with the military background, interest in pursuing a career in cybersecurity?
Yeah. Great question. And interesting that you mentioned mentorship, because that is, I think, my number one tip is you have to find a mentor and or sponsor of someone that is going through or has been through your end goal, what transitioning into cybersecurity, because they trailblazed and they opened those doors so that you wouldn't have to do it alone. So find that friend and find that sponsor. Number two, you want to use all your free resources. We talked a lot about nonprofits and state resources. Biden administration has been huge with technology, so there's a lot of free grant money out there. So look at some of those resources. Don't be afraid to create as well. There's a lot of accelerators for people in technology looking to start up a company. So that is another avenue. And I said it earlier, but find where you can get free IT certifications because they're pricey. I know one of the ones I did is almost $700. So you definitely want to take advantage of anything that your veteran benefits would be able to cover. And then my last piece of advice would be to just do it. There isn't going to be a perfect time. Not everything's going to align. Start small, start by small footprints, and eventually you'll get there.
Yes, I love that. You were talking about certifications, and I wanted to add that Syracuse University, the IVMF, they actually will also pay for certifications as well. And yes, not only just in
Amazing.
tech, but they will also like your HR certifications, your project management certifications. And it's a wonderful organization. If you want to start your own business, they have VWise, Edge. They have so many different programs. It's Syracuse University, IVMF, which is Institute for Veteran and Military Families. Great program. Also, make sure if you're still in the military and in cybersecurity, I would say, or IT, take all the certs, get all your certs while you're in, because there's the cool program. They have so many different programs in there where the military will pay for those trainings. And some people don't take advantage of those trainings that will cost thousands of dollars and is absolutely free for our veterans. You just got to
Yeah.
be on your free time at home and log in and get those things done. And sometimes it helps with getting promoted. But
Yep.
when you have those, and I know in the Army, you get points for education and you might get points for certifications as well. So
Mhm.
definitely take advantage of that. And then that will put you almost ahead of the line when you're getting out the military and you're applying for a civilian job.
Yeah, yeah, it is competitive out there, and the more that you can have, the better. I know I wish I had started earlier in my career. I didn't start my bachelor's degree until a year before I was getting out of the military. So I did not have a bachelor's degree when I got to my first job. And however, what did help was that I had experience and I had a clearance and I had IT certifications. And I was able to come into my first job at a senior level because of that experience and my resume work that I redrafted more than 100 times probably and seeking all this mentorship and resources and people to review it. So yeah, I wish I had started earlier and taken more advantage of it, but I'm glad I started when I did. And yeah, it does play a big role. Once I got an additional certification and I had my bachelor's degree under my belt, I was able to apply for a higher level at my current civilian job and then eventually make it onto the management track. So definitely consider school and furthering your education.
I love all the things that you're doing and just want to just thank you so much for just being willing to really advocate for others and bring awareness to Latinas in tech. And I think it's you could easily just decide, get my job and get paid and go home, but you decide to give back to the community. So we definitely appreciate you.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. And like I, mentioned earlier, I love what She Vets It is doing. Had I known of these type of communities when I first got out of the military, it would have been wonderful. But you're here now, and yeah, hopefully we can get all the exposure and just get more people involved. This is a needed resource in our community.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Is there anything you want to add for closing thoughts on tips and things that you want to share with the community before we close out?
Yeah. I will say reach out. Don't isolate yourself. Whether you feel like you're the only one going through your journey, you're not. There is no obstacle, there is no challenge that you cannot overcome. It's okay to feel sad, maybe even depressed or anxious, especially while you're transitioning or post military service. But walk through that feeling. Don't sit with it forever. Just walk through that feeling and keep on pushing forward. There's a reason you're here. There's a purpose for everyone. So we just got to keep marching forward and finding that.
Some people want to connect with you to be part of your organization that's in Denver. How can they contact you?
So you can find me on LinkedIn. I am under the name Jaidie V, as well as social media, Instagram. I am becoming underscore Jaidie. And then for Latinas in Tech Denver, you can also find us on LinkedIn by searching for us, Latinas in Tech Denver, as well as Instagram.
Awesome. It's been great. And you guys make sure that you follow JD, follow her on Instagram and on LinkedIn, and let her know if there's anything she shared today that was really helpful. She would definitely love to hear your feedback. Again, JD, it's been awesome. Well, I appreciate you again. You're always welcome on She Vets It. Call me anytime.
I will.
Yes, yes. You take care. And
Thank you so much.
you're welcome. And that's a wrap for today's episode of She Vets It. A huge thank you to Jaidie Vargas for sharing her incredible journey and insights with us. Remember, diversity drives innovation and representation matters. Be sure to follow us on all social media platforms and subscribe to SheVetsIt.com for more empowering stories like Jaidie's. Until next time, keep breaking barriers and stay inspired.